There are days like this. Many rugby players never have it, never experience it. It is special. Because today will determine what we are. It will say everything about us.
Remember the pledges you make. Remember how you depend on each other. You depend on each other at every phase. This is your Everest, boys. Very few ever get a chance in rugby terms to give for Everest.
And you can look at your teammate in the eye and say, I couldn't have given any more. Nobody can ask anything else.
What does it mean to be picked for the British and Irish line? What does it mean to you? It's the greatest honour I could ever receive as a rugby player. It's the pinnacle of my career.
You leave us international, you come back as a lion.
When you put this jersey on, it asks of you things that no other jersey can ever ask of you.
You're all here for a particular purpose. Your name wasn't just taken out of a hat. You're here because you're regarded as the best of the best.
The mantle you carry and the challenge that you have is to put a marker down in South Africa.
Oh, don't be mad now!
You shock yourself by taking yourself to another level. Because that's what being a Lion's about. It ain't about anything other than that. It ain't about taking part. It ain't about being here. It's about winning.
You are privileged. You are the chosen few. Many are considered, but few are chosen.
And it's down to us, no one else. Squeeze the arms again!
There are times today when you're going to have to reach into the very depths of your soul to get to that ball.
The Lions are special, the legends go with it.
From Britain and Ireland, this is what dreams are made of.
Dis donderdag aand, so welkom by die Losgemaal en soos julle kan sien, doen ons vandag dinge bietjie anders. Dis so kom ons skop weg aan daai gees. Cappy, welcome to the show. Lions team has been announced. Are you finally starting to feel the vibe?
Yeah, no, I think the vibe is kicking in. First squad has been announced. We're just waiting for the world champions to obviously be announced. But yeah, I think the wheels are starting to roll now, and it's only a matter of days. 51 days, in fact, if the original schedule still sticks around. So yeah, let's wait and see.
It's interesting you say that, Cappy, because I mean it's probably a strange thing, a squad being announced and the talk really upping now, but we don't even have the finalized fixtures yet. But be that as it may, today we've decided to bring in a specialist on this topic. So hot off the press, the team news, and we decided it's time to pull in the big guns, pull in someone who's going to have a little bit more knowledge on the subject than you and me. So let's bring in Andy from Scrum5.
Hey gents, how are you? I hope I've gone British Lions enough for you with the set. Is that okay? Is there any doubt who I'm supporting here?
Funny, man. Welcome to the show, and we really privileged to have you here tonight. And as Heinz mentioned, our first full-on English show. So yeah, any of our Afrikaans viewers, please don't take offense. But yeah, I think it's only but respectful to speak to Andy, who lives in South Africa, funny enough, but he's a staunch Lions supporter. In fact, Andy, you and I have spoken before, and I mean, you've made it pretty clear that even though England is your team, the British and Lions gets the nod ahead of them.
Yeah, I don't think there's much anything like it, if you like, in world sport. 4 countries coming together to, I mean, just the history alone speaks for itself. But if you look back at some of the tours over the years, even probably the first one I remember is 97, but I've watched the highlights of 93 and 89. They're just absolutely incredible. And then the 2009, those first 2 tests, despite the result, probably still the 2 best test matches I think I've ever watched. They had everything. It was there's just something about it. There's just something about it that you can't. Sometimes you can't put your finger on it, and it's probably best you can't put your finger on it. Just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Andy, can I pop in there just from your side? We've obviously had the strangest build-up ever. As I said, the schedule isn't finalised yet in any case, but on the other hand, it was on, it was off. It was going to be in the UK. It might have been in Oz. Do you are you finally over it? Are you finally starting to feel the vibe and getting stuck into it, or do you still feel like it's a little bit of a damn squid this year?
After today and after watching that video that you boys just put up, I mean, like, it just I'm always in bloody tears every time. Like, I love the Lions. I want to see us play. For me, playing it in the UK would have been completely wrong, and I was very vocal about that. I know that a lot of us were very vocal about that. That would take away from the ethos of the Lions. It's not about commercial. It's not about getting fans into stadiums and everything like that. It's about the Lions is a touring team. That's what they do, you know. And it's going to be gutting that the Red Army is not going to come with them this year. But look, I'm glad it's settled. I'm glad it's in this country. There's always going to be a piece of me. We've just seen it with the IPL. We've seen it all over the world, that we start these tournaments or these competitions and then they fall apart. I don't know. I want to let go of that thought. I really do. I'm trying to let go of that thought because I want it to be really special. And look, I had tickets, so it's difficult from that side of things. But let's not take away from the fact that it is the Lions. They are travelling to South Africa, which for me has always been the most important Lions destination for many reasons. And at the moment, you're the world champion, so it doesn't get any bigger than that for me in world rugby. So going back to Jacques' point earlier, as much as 2019 hurt massively, 2009 probably hurt that a little bit more, actually.
Very interesting that you said that. I was almost I almost thought you were going to say something in the lines of, "This is time for redemption," you know. But yeah, it will never be redemption, I suppose, in that way. But yeah, why? I know you said you don't really know. You can't really put your finger on it. But so many people say that the Lions tour to South Africa is the ultimate tour. I mean, we've actually got a video here that I played the other night when we had DJ Bokke on the show, and the guys, I mean, what's his name, Warren Gatland, and you know, the former captain, they just all like, there is only one tour, the ultimate tour, and it's the one to Africa. Why do you think that is?
You know, I think there's still, without getting too deep, I think there's still a romantic view from the UK around apartheid. I hate to say it, like I don't know how to explain that really, but it's kind of like there's a mystique about it. And I think because you go to these areas in South Africa where you'll go to the deepest sort of Afrikaans places, to the townships, to, I think the demographic all plays into it. And then there's the fact that I just think the South African fans get it more than any others. I think there's an underlying envy of this brand as the British and Irish Lions, and but with that envy comes the utmost respect of 4 teams. You chuck England in there, we know everyone hates us, so it's fine. It's not a problem. Like, but you chuck those boys in there as well, and then you get. But then you've got like Wales, which is, they live for rugby. It's a huge rugby place, and you chuck. It's like you chuck all these things in a mix, and it just makes this like perfect blend. And I actually just think that South Africa sort of almost get the concept better than New Zealand and New Zealander tend to be very self-obsessed, especially with the All Blacks. So I just feel that the Springboks sort of get it more. I think with the demographic of this country and what the Lions brings with it as a brand, both funding, both financially, and everything that goes with that, as well as the links to places like Wales, which is obviously a huge rugby hotbed. It just makes this perfect bubbling mix, and I think that's why South Africa is the ultimate destination.
Yes, no, most definitely. Listen, obviously we had to chat about the squad announcement that happened today. As you mentioned off air, trying to get into the psyche of Aaron Jackson's head. How did he come about selecting this team and so forth? But as everything, I mean, it was quite funny actually today, seeing Alan Wynne-Jones, who's the captain, being beamed in the studio. I don't know if you got to see it, Ans. I know you were on the road. But yeah, it was quite funny. The times we're living in, it's a bit different. But I think before we get into this discussion, let's just have a look back at some of the captains that have been there, and obviously Alan Wynne-Jones joining some very, very esteemed company of late. So Alan Wynne-Jones is the man, and I'm obviously throw it to you, Andy. What do you think about that?
I think it was Alan Wynne-Jones. Sorry, you missed the first bit there, Joe. You're talking about Alan Wynne-Jones. He's the right candidate.
What are your thoughts on Alan Wynne-Jones being nominated, or not nominated, and selected for the tour?
Look, 100% the right decision for me. Yes, his form had gone off a little bit before this last Six Nations, but as a leader, if you look at the list of players there, I know a lot of people are talking about Maro Itoje. Maro Itoje is a world-class rugby player, but he still has a lot to develop. And I think his playing and his discipline and things like that need to develop before he becomes an out-and-out leader. This is such a different kind of rugby. This is somebody who has to keep a group together for over 6 weeks. Now, keep a group together over 6 weeks, locked in a hotel and in a bubble. And you need a very, very special character for that. And as leadership qualities go, you're not going to find anybody on that list other than Alan Wynne-Jones. Is he guaranteed a test spot? I'm not, and I know we can probably touch on it later. I'm not 100% sure, but off his form from the Six Nations and from the 2020 to 2021, he was almost back at his best, I say, if not back at his best. So yeah, I think I've got no arguments with the captain choice whatsoever.
Andy, I'd love to start running through the team there, and especially maybe taking it from the forwards. But I think we're going to probably allude to it every time whilst we go through it. So maybe just to start things off, you've looked at the squad. You obviously know Warren Gatland quite a bit as a coach, and what Rassie Erasmus brought at the World Cup and everything like that. How do you see the style? What is the style that Gatland's going to try and bring to beating the Boks? Is it going to be a replica of the Welsh game, just minimize your risks, kick a lot of ball, or how do you see him, especially also in terms of how he's chosen the side? What do you expect him to come and do in South Africa?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting selection. It's a very mobile pack, which is quite un-Gatland-like to a degree. Sam Simmons, for instance, Faletau, obviously we know all about him. Hamish Watson, there's been question marks in the UK over his size, which is ridiculous because if you get that man over a ball, he isn't going to let go. Tom Curry, we know how mobile he is. And then if you actually go through the second rows, you'll see that there's a lot of guys there who have many Twitter experts believe should be playing in the back row. One for me there to look out for is Tadhg Beirne. I think he's in the squad as a second row, but looking through the back row selection there, I would say that Gatland's probably eyeing him up as a potential blind side. I know Tom Curry will potentially play on that blind side with Tipperich and Watson being an out-and-out open sides. But Tadhg Beirne is somebody who took his chance when Peter O'Mahony got injured in the last Six Nations and really, really flourished. I mean, he was flying for the Irish side during the last Six Nations. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty mobile pack, to be fair, compared to some of the beef and brawn that he's gone for in the past. In the backs, there's lots of. I mean, that back three is going to be open for debate a lot. The Robbie Henshaw, Bundy, Aki selection, that is a very Warren Gatland style selection, especially Aki loves a ball carrying 12. Jamie Roberts has always been one of his favourite players. So from that side of things, Henshaw is probably a better ball player than Roberts, but he does carry that bulk, and we know what Aki can do as long as he can tackle without hitting somebody in the head. That'd be ideal because he's had a few hits. We'll probably touch on the 10 debate later because that's really interesting, and also at 9 as well. But I actually think he's gone for generally speaking, a fairly mobile team, a fairly mobile pack, and I think he's going to be looking to move the ball, but with security at the back.
Seems like I started you off on the wrong chain there. You've already gone into half the team, so maybe let's jog straight into it. The front row for me, I don't know. Maybe this catches on a little bit to your tactics. Ian Healy not making it. Sinclair, I was a bit surprised there. I thought those are two names that were going to be a shoe-in. I mean, I thought they'd be in the first best 23, not even not making the squad. So. To me, that's the surprise. England, I mean, we saw in that final without Sinclair there at tight head, it already went pear-shaped for them. So I think he's still a strong three, and it's a surprise not seeing him in the squad, even though Dad Furlong is obviously immense.
Yeah, I think Cian Healy sort of had some injuries, and he's sort of been in and out a little bit, and he played very well against England, funnily enough, in the final game of the Six Nations. Sutherland has completely played himself into that squad. He's very mobile, loves a little break, loves a little ballet step here and there. So he's going to offer quite a bit in the loose as well. I think the surprise possibly is Andrew Porter being in there ahead of someone like Sinclair. For me, that's probably the only real surprise in there, Sinclair. I mean, what you've got, I think when you start at the beginning, when you're trying to curate a squad like this, you've got to realise that this is curating a rugby squad like nobody else. It's all well and good bringing the box over for, France, England, Scotland and Ireland, and that's fine. But this is 8 games against, you're essentially picking an A and a B team and hoping that the B team are going to push the A team for a test spot. So you've also got to take into consideration the character of people that are able to be a true lion and support all the way through. So you've got to remember that character plays a big part in this. So for instance, someone like Ellis Genge, who played at the weekend, was phenomenal for Leicester on Friday night. And even Sam Warburton, who's like, he's in Gatland's ear, let's be honest. He's like his favourite love child of all time. He was bigging up Genge, he was bigging up Genge massively. Does Genge have the personality? Does Sinclair have the personality to be trapped in a hotel room for 6 months? 6 weeks, and then play at the top of their game. So I think these things have got to be taken into consideration, and everyone gets really upset and this person didn't get picked and that person didn't get picked. But you're right. I think the one surprise there is that Sinclair's been left out. You've also got to remember that the 36 or 37 that travel will not be the same 37 that get back on the plane on the way back. There's always injuries, but I'm glad Mako's in there. I know he's not necessarily been top of his game, but Mako is like the ultimate. He just stays at one level. He produces. He makes a bucket load of tackles and he scrummages. So yeah, and I'm glad Mako's in there. But yeah, no, I think the Scottish boys deserve to be in that front row. They had a fantastic Six Nations, and yeah, like you said, the only person that I'm really surprised at really there is Sinclair. With the hooking, Hooker's actually probably the easiest pick because there's not a massive amount of depth there. There'll be a good battle there between. I mean, Jamie George for me is probably the best line-out thrower in the world, but maybe has lost a bit in the loose. Luke Cowan-Dickey has this habit of scoring tries. He's, I think he will overtake Jamie George. I think Ken Owens does what Ken Owens does. Like he's the sheriff. That's his nickname. He's the sheriff. So there'll be a good battle there. So I can't really pick somebody out to be the starting hooker. If I was to pick one tomorrow, maybe Ken Owens. But they offer so much. Each hooker offers so much difference, but they're all top class. So only 3 hookers. I think that's probably about right.
I must say, Andy, I've actually stalled. I think I stopped listening there when you talked about Sutherland and having fast feet. I was just thinking about a matchup between him and the absolutely fast feet of Frans Malherbe. It was astonishing. I kept playing it over my head, yeah. But moving on, yeah, I think the hookers, definitely that's the most or the least amount of chat I've heard there. I think most at those 3 in there. So I don't think there's much to talk about on that one. The one thing that is good, I see quite a bit of combinations between the Welsh and the English in terms of the hookers, and then the second row. Obviously, Owen Jones going to be playing, Itoje going to be playing. So I mean, that's probably going to be your starting locks, and then either way that they go on the hookers, it's going to mean a combination. You talked earlier about the captain not necessarily being a shoe-in in a starting lineup. Your other thoughts on the second rowers, and then maybe moving towards the loose forwards, because obviously you've got a guy like Courtney Laws who's going to be, playing both sides of the fence there.
Yeah, he's clearly picked a lot of hybrid players there. I think if we just go straight into the second row, there's definitely huge depth there, and there'll be a few people there that will probably feel very aggrieved this evening. James Ryan, for one, will 100% be smarting a little bit. I think he's very unlucky to miss out. And I think the other one will be Jake Ball. Jake Ball's been playing very well for Wales. But if you then look at the back row, you've got Faletau, Tipperich, Watson, Curry, who are Conan and Simmons, sorry. It's a very dynamic back row, but there's not a lot of 6s there. 7 in South Africa, but blindside flankers there. So you're looking at a Tyke Byrne, Courtney Laws, who can play 6 and fill in during the midweek games, but also offer you a lot in the second row as well. So I think you've got hybrid players. Maro Itoje has played a lot of back row for Saracens. For me, I think the battle will be if Maro can find some discipline form in South Africa, he's an absolute shoo-in. At the moment, Alan Wynne-Jones is a shoo-in, but don't count out Ian Henderson, an unbelievable line-out operator. Well, the line-out goes through him for Ireland, an unbelievable line-out operator, but also physical. And I think the physicality, Ian Henderson's got an amazing ability of getting through the middle of a maul, and getting through the middle of a maul and killing ball. So actually, that's why I say about the whole Alan Wynne-Jones thing, excuse me, that he is not necessarily a shoo-in for a starting spot as a test player. So that second row is really, really interesting, and we'll see how it goes. My surprise there would be Johnny Hill. He's still very green. He had a decent Six Nations, but again, discipline at times. But I keep saying this about discipline, but the England players are all ill-disciplined during the Six Nations. But I don't know, James Ryan or Johnny Hill. Personally, I'd have probably picked James Ryan. But yeah, look, that's what Gatland's may have gone for, a bit more all action with Johnny Hill. Bit of unpredictability, but when he's on it, he's completely on it. The back row, CJ Stander missing out is, I mean, he's never really spoken about, was he? Leading into it, which surprised me because I thought he had a great sort of end to the Six Nations. He's playing very well for Munster near the end, so that's quite surprising. Billy Vunipola, I'm not surprised about. I'm not surprised about.
Really? Why not?
Yeah, he didn't really have a good World Cup, did he? And he hasn't really.
No, but that's a World Cup, and that's almost it's like a year and a half ago.
No, but he hasn't really found. So, like when we went to Australia, when England went to Australia and whitewashed Australia, he was unstoppable. I just don't think he's found that ball carrying. He's getting stopped upright. He's not going over the man. I mean, he did it against France this year. But if you're only going to do it at one of 5 games, then it's not consistent enough for international rugby, is it? So
I must say though that I don't see Gatlin. I mean, as long as he's fit, there's just no ways he's going past Faletau to start at 8 for him though. Surely, I mean that's another Gatlin kind of centerpiece there. I don't think he's going to be moving away from Faletau for him, giving him that go forward from 8, and it's going to be quite a cracker when him and Dwayne Vermeulen collide.
Well, you say that, but if you were to take domestic form and was to take Faletau against Sam Simmons, there's only one winner right now. It's just the fact that Eddie Jones, for some reason, refuses to pick Sam Simmons. This guy is dynamite. Like, everybody in England thinks Sam Simmons should be the England number 8, apart from Mr. Eddie Jones. It's utterly ridiculous. He's the top scorer in the Premiership. He's honestly, this boy is next level, and this is another conversation about the England squad, but they're just too comfortable in there, and he's got his favourites. But for me, Sam Simmons could well be your ultimate bolter for this Lions tour. Faletau is a class act. I'm a huge Bath fan, and Faletau sort of peaks and troughs, but as soon as he puts on an international shirt or he gets into a big game, he is next level. He was amazing in New Zealand 4 years ago. So that's going to be a huge. Jack Conan, great ball carrier, big ball carrier. So he's definitely bigger. I think if there's anyone that's probably upset about missing out, maybe Caelan Doris from Ireland. Again, brilliant ball carrier, but there's so many players in there that will feel aggrieved to be missed out. So Josh Navidi being one of them. I'm really disappointed that Sam Underhill got his injury when he got his injury. I know he's come back now, but he's still yet to hit his strap, so to speak. But I think the back row is a really interesting pick, because it's really only Jack Conan that's a big sort of lump of a man. The rest are all very much. He's going to attack the breakdown. Gatlin is definitely going to attack the breakdown. He's seen that as a place where Vermeulen often gets the upper hand. Peter Steph Toy, obviously, and yeah, I think that's he's looked at that and gone, I need some pace around that back, around the breakdown.
Just before we head over to the backs, and I just want to ask you, do you think the fact that CJ kind of retired played a factor in him not being selected?
Potentially, but people love a swan song, don't they? Like people like, you get that sort of attitude from a player where it's gonna like, I'll put everything on the line, I'll do everything you want. Yeah, I don't know. Stander's a weird one. He sort of went out of the conversation quite a while back, which was surprising. Which was really surprising, because he's CJ Stander. He does what he does, and yeah, I don't know. I can't put my finger on that one either, because he is a massive ball carrier as well, and defensively he's just an absolute machine.
Yes.
So
but you know what was surprising for me is the day that when he called his retirement, nowhere in his statement, and I stand to be corrected, but nowhere in his statement did he even mention something about the Lions, or just at least being available, even though he's going to retire. Yes, I think a lot of people just took it for granted that end of the season would include the Lions, but I wonder if it really did include the Lions.
No, I believe it did, 100%. I think he saw the Lions as his swan song. But yeah, as far as I know, it was very much like, I'm aiming to, get on that Lions. I mean, against England in his last game for Ireland, he was sensational. He was brilliant. And then obviously he put in some serious shifts for Munster after that. So I don't really know. Like I said, I think Gatland's gone for a very, very mobile back row there. He's not really gone for huge bulk. I think he'll find that in his front five with a mobility with someone like an Itoje in there. And then he's pinned his colours to the mast. He's going to go and attack the breakdown 100%.
Andy,
So
from your side, from your side, if you look at that back, as you just said, do you think that is the way to go against the box? I mean, you've obviously seen the behind the scenes stuff as well. When things get a little bit overly complicated for the box, it's okay, just go out there and bash them and just be more physical. So do you think this is one of the aspects that you can beat the box at is rather than trying to also outmuscle them and just being a heck of a collision, just rather try and be a bit smarter, maybe a little bit more mobile, and maybe some of the box not coming in absolutely top fit. So if you run them around the paddock, it could be a long day on the park.
Yeah, I do, and I think he's probably taken match fitness into consideration as well, and I mean international match fitness. Look, the World Cup, we saw Wales try it, failed. We saw England try and bash the door down, failed. So I think he's probably taken that into some consideration as well. So yeah, I think he's going to try and play a very mobile game, but smartly. When the time is right, he's going to move this ball around, and he's going to get Tom Curry, and he's going to get, I mean, Tipuric is just an unbelievable ball player. But, if you've got Sam Simmons carrying the ball off the back, and you've got Tipuric or Watson over the ball, it's gonna be high octane stuff. So, which, to be honest, for Gatland is what he's always liked. He's loved somebody over the ball. He loves a jackal. He's had Warburton, he's had Tipuric, he's had Dan Lydia over the years, and Navidi does it. So yeah, I think he's gone for a very mobile back row to seriously try and slow the ball down, to stop the big runners coming onto the ball as South Africa like. Etzebeth loves to hit it on the gain line. We know what Vermeulen can do. The Ierse, they all love hitting that ball on the gain line. So if they can stop that happening or reset as a defensive unit to close that down, then I think that's why he's made those decisions.
Andy, my favourite position is no secret, fly off. I mean, I know we should start at punt probably, but I'm going to start at one of the most talked about. And I mean, over the last few days, in fact, there's been a lot of chat about Dan Biggar. Is he going to be the one, Johnny Sexton? And I think the answer came out today. No Johnny Sexton whatsoever. I think, to me, that was the biggest shock of the whole squad. Probably because, that is kind of the player that I love watching the most, is fly off. And obviously, Owen Farrell, there was big debate about him, whether he'll make it or not. Hasn't had a great season with England. So, yeah, I mean, let's get into the backs, and why not start there with the most talked about, probably, position of all.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if you look at, I just tried to read too much into this, but there you go. Look at the layout of where they put the name. So he's clearly picked Owen Farrell as a 10. Okay, so he's got the 9s below him, and then he's got Owen Farrell, Finn Russell, and Dan Biggar.
Yeah.
And I think it's so hard to call because he's a big Owen Farrell fan, is Warren Gatland. He's seen him develop from the 09 tour, the 13 tour to the 17 tour to now. And you see clips of like Paul O'Connell speaking about Owen Farrell and things like that. And love him or hate him, and I know you all hate him, and that's fine, but he is somebody that is all or nothing. Finn Russell is always up for a mistake as much as he is pulling a whole defensive unit apart. Dan Biggar is solid. He does exactly what he says on the tin. You know, he'll take the ball to the gain line and he'll kick very well, and he will really attack you in the air. But I don't think Dan Biggar's got the imagination maybe to be the test starting 10, which is where I think Owen Farrell maybe his 10 rather than his 12. And then I look up the list to the centres and I'm thinking, well, hang on a second, there's not Robbie Henshaw definitely is in with a shout. But after that, it's kind of Bundyaki, Chris Harris, good players, but are they really Lions test level? So now I'm thinking, flip, he's going to play Farrell. He's going to play Farrell at 12, and then Finn Russell maybe at 10. It's an interesting one. But Biggar is solid without being spectacular.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure Biggar's going to unlock defenses, whereas Farrell's distribution or Russell's running game can unlock defenses. So that's going to be really, really interesting to see that play out. I know we spoke about it earlier today. I think Sexton's taken. Oh, there you go. Sexton's taken a lot of head knocks recently. I don't agree that Farrell shouldn't be there, Mr. Shepherd. But for me, it's difficult. It's difficult to see what his thinking is, to be honest with you. I think we could end up with Russell at 10, Farrell at 12, with Farrell being his sort of outlet, his safety net. We know what Farrell can do. He can kick the corners. His distribution from a second receiver position is fantastic. I would imagine that George Ford was in that conversation at some point quite heavily. We know that Ford's defence is suspect because of his size and his tackling capabilities. However, playing shoulder forward in Europe, you're not going to find anyone better when you're on the front foot. But the thing with Ford is that everyone knows his defence is dodgy, so everyone will target his defence. Whereas with these guys, they're going to make you think twice. With Farrell's distribution and Russell's ability to pull a rabbit out of the hat, they might just be the perfect foil for each other. So I think, although it looks like he's named Farrell as a 10, and he will no doubt play in that position somewhere on the tour, I think you might see a Russell Farrell 10-12 with somebody like, you might even see Henshaw outside that. And what they'll do is they'll just interchange, and Henshaw will come on the short ball like Tuilangi does when he's fit for England, and Farrell will drift out and be that second receiver off a screen ball. So, yeah, I think also it's worth mentioning that I think Elliot Daly's in there, and there'll be a lot of people not too pleased about Elliot Daly being in there. I think I want to set the record straight on Daly. He's a world-class rugby player. He's not a world-class fullback. And I think that's the issue with England, is that they're playing Daly out of position. When he was on the wing, and I'd love to see him at outside centre, to be honest, for England. I'd love to see him get a run there just to see what he's like. You know, he's a better rugby player than Henry Slade. There's no doubt about that in my mind. The one person I would love to have seen on that list that I probably maybe dropped Aki for would have been Jonathan Davies. He's just a class act. I know he's not potentially at the form that he's been in the past, but it's not often you hear me say this, but as Welsh players go, like, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Davies. So I'd like to have seen him in there and given the chance. He's a great tourist. He's proved himself at Lions level. But yeah, look, Gatland's picking on form. So that's quite refreshing, to be honest. So yeah, let's see how those boys go.
Just quickly there, Cappy, can you maybe just throw the squad on there? I know Andy was looking particularly at Owen Farrell being selected there, but then if you look at that way of naming the team, why is Elliot Daly there between Robbie Henshaw and Dan Biggar? Surely he's not being considered as a inside centre.
Yeah, this is it. It's like a double bluff, isn't it? I think Daly is definitely a utility player. I don't think Gatland would be taking him just because he's got a huge boot and it could be advantageous at in the felt, in the high felt. Sorry. I think Daly's in there as a real utility player because he can play everywhere. If you look, there's only, there's six at the backs. Daly can play at outside centre. He can play on the wing. So yeah, and allegedly can play at fullback, much to much to my disgust. But yeah, I think he's definitely in there as a utility player for any sort of injury, whatever. I mean, his form is not good. It's not good.
I think you might have found your player number 37 there.
Possibly, because it was only supposed to be 36, wasn't it? So maybe Daly snuck in there when they looked at the out and out centres. Henshaw, unbelievable rugby player, but Aki, Harris is good on the outside shoulder. Don't get me wrong. It'd be interesting to see how Harris goes. He's got the skill set. It's just whether he's got in the big games to be able to step up. But yeah, the more I'm talking to you boys, the more I'm thinking it's going to be a Russell, Farrell, Henshaw sort of midfield, I think.
I can't really look past the Farrell playing 12 just because, I mean, not selecting Ringrose, Davies, or even your favourite Slade there to me is, I think those were probably some of the selections, and now you're left with pretty much 3 centres there outside of Farrell. So I think that part probably has to be. But then the question is the 10, and I think that was the question I was trying to get to. If Gatlin does decide to play a little bit open, a little bit faster, then surely it's time to go the whole hog there and play Finn Russell and give it a proper bash, because as you said, I mean, he can be champagne or lukewarm piss in a plastic cup, but on his day he can be pretty spectacular. Just on the scrum halves there, maybe Andy, is there any surprise for you? Obviously, I quite like Ali Price as a scrummy. To me, he brings a good energy, and then obviously the mastermind Conor Murray, who was always going to lead the charge.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure Ben Youngs was. I think Ben Youngs may have been picked above Ali Price, weirdly, and I think that would go with the whole midweek mentality, not to sort of look down on the midweek team, because flipping hell, I'd give my right arm for that. But yeah, Ali Price is someone that was, in my opinion, hard done by Scotland for about 4 years. Greg Laidlaw should have been nowhere near that team. It should have been Ali Price for a long time. Conor Murray is the best box kicker in the world and will continue to be. And when he's got people like Liam Williams and Anthony Watson or Reece Zammit chasing that ball, Josh Adams, then he's going to be there or thereabouts. And Gareth Davies can just continue the form and the trajectory that he was on 2 years ago. If you're playing Conor Murray for 60 minutes and then bringing Gareth Davies on, that is scary. That's actually scary. Gareth Davies pretty much turned around the first test, although they lost against New Zealand, who sort of really put himself about. So yeah, it's a good set of nines. It's a good set of nines. I mean, there's a lot of rumours going around about Danny Kerr and stuff like that, but I don't actually think he was too far in the conversation, to be honest with you. I think you can't look past those 3. We can't at the current stage, especially when Youngs pulls out. So you've got 4 nations, 4 scrum halves, and 1 pulls out. That leaves you with 3. So there you go. Not anymore.
We've got some chirps coming in tonight, and some new faces here. Yeah, while Andy get that throat wet. I hear it's getting dry there. Yeah, Jandra Hubert, Farida Player, that is the best box kicker in the world.
Not anymore.
Oh, knows the way South Africans are coming back at their ripe old age. Don't write them off. But yeah, I just want to Quentin van Venter, just quickly want to touch on it. He's tuned in late. We did touch on the CJ thing. And yeah, we all kind of feel that he must be very unlucky to not have made it, as it more than likely was his ideally, like Andy would say, swan song. So yeah, it's actually quite sad that it's not going to happen. But yeah, it just forces the big one, Dwan van der Merwe, of all names, in a British and Irish Lions team. Who would have ever thought that? He's going to have to speak English the whole tour. No Afrikaans for him whatsoever.
Of the Van der Merwe clan of the Highlands, yeah?
The one and only. Tell you what, that is probably going to be the biggest next surname in all of the UK. So I mean, I think he's such an exciting prospect. He's broken Brian O'Driscoll's record. So it's exciting times for a young man like that. Who, funny enough, and I'm sorry, I'll be open about it. Yeah, for some reason he didn't make it in South Africa. I don't know why, but yeah, it's one of those things, and it's going to be nice. I think for him, it's going to be brilliant to be able to come home and play against the Boks. I mean, what better team to play against? Being a South African, and that's why it would have been so nice to see CJ Stander. Although the last time around when CJ was around, yeah, we won't go there. I know that's not something I would talk about.
Mr. Lambie doesn't want to go there.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Van der Merwe?
Oh, mate, he's a class act and he scores tries. Like, if you want to write a job description for a winger, he does it all, doesn't he? He beats people, he takes high balls, and he runs over people, which is pretty much what you want. I think the back three is as big a contest as the second row is, with the depth. I mean, you look at the people that have been left at that. Johnny May, didn't have a great Six Nations, but before the World Cup, they were talking big things about Johnny May. He's toured well to South Africa before, to be fair. 2018 results not the way that England wanted them, but was scoring tries, scored that one at Newlands, and then he scored some incredible tries in the Six Nations and the Autumn Nations Cup. And then all of a sudden, he's not getting ball, therefore he's out of the Lions squad. But this is where I'm going to annoy a lot. I think a lot of people are going to be pissed off at me now. I saw Rian there. Just bring Rian's comment back up for us if you can. I wouldn't pick Stuart Hogg. The reason being, okay, let me go back to the start. I like Stuart Hogg. I think he's a fantastic rugby player. However, he is prone to big mistakes in big games. He's dropped the ball over the line. There was a try that England scored a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, at Twickenham, that he didn't defend well. It's stuff that is the bread and butter for a fullback. And I know he's box office. I know what he can do going forward. But he's also your last line of defence. And that's why, for me, my back three would be Anthony Watson and Liam Williams. I'm not sure who I want at fullback or on the wing. I'd love to see Watson get some game time at fullback. That's where I think he should be playing for England. Liam Williams is just superb at the back. It's a bit like the George Ford thing. You know there's a weakness, so you're going to attack it. All right, and that's all well and good if Italy believe they're going to attack it or someone like that. But when the world champions are going to attack it, they're going to attack it properly. When they've got a mastermind like Rassi and Nian Harbour putting a game plan together, they will know that there's a weakness in Hogg's game. Now, you cannot afford a clanger in a British and Irish Lions tour. And Stuart Barnes wrote an article about this the other week, and I think I was the only person from the UK that agreed with him. Hogg has got that in his game. He's got that in his game. So for me, I would play Liam Williams, Anthony Watson, and then you're down to, I don't know, it depends what sort of game was played. Reece Zammit, they may see him as too young. I mean, he's 20, he's the youngest first pick since 19 something ridiculous, early 1900s. And then Van der Merwe, again, brutal finisher. But Josh Adams in the air is a superb rugby player. So there's an embarrassment of riches in the back three. But Watson, for me, is top of the tree there because he can just beat anybody. He will always be the best man. Always beat the first man. He very, very rarely dies with the ball. And I think that is a huge asset to have in modern day rugby, because if a hog is the sort of person that will get put down quickly because of his low running style, and then people can get over the ball. Watson doesn't hit the deck very easily at all. Williams doesn't hit the deck very easily at all. And I think you might see Josh Adams might just be at the front of the queue for that other wing berth at the moment.
Andy, we can see you think about things a little bit more differently than the South Africans do. I mean, you've talked about your back three based on pace and elusiveness and not dying with the ball, where I think when the Springboks choose at least two out of those three, it's going to be high ball and having a boot. So, I mean, the question is, are they going to have a good enough boot there? Probably, I know Williams has probably got a decent hoof on him to get them out of trouble, because obviously if you have Farrell, you already have a second kicker, but returning those kicks, and then secondly, I mean, especially if Duan van der Merwe is in the mix, it's going to be behind them. The smaller guys, if you play them on the wing, it's going to be up and unders to the corner. Even Anthony Watson, someone who doesn't play 15 in and week out. So who's going to be those bankers that are going to be taking the Andre Pollards and the Faf de Klerk high balls?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Liam Williams and Anthony Watson, two of the best under the high ball in the Northern Hemisphere. When they get turned, agreed, that might be it. That might be an issue. Williams is a solid kicker. Watson has kicking games improved immensely. I hear what you're saying with the long kick, and Hogg has probably got the biggest kick out of everybody there. But if he hasn't got the space to kick, or they start kicking in the air because it's Hogg at the back, then his right foot is made redundant instantly. I'm not saying they can do that for 240 minutes of a test series, but we're not playing against amateurs here. We're playing against the world champions who are going to have an incredibly clever game plan. It's not just going to go out on the field and batter each other. So for me, if the ball's going out, we know Faf will eventually start kicking the ball in the air. You're going to need those boys like Adams, Williams and Watson, who are incredible under the high ball. That, for me, will be a bigger asset than having Hogg potentially opening a game up from some loose ball, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of loose ball.
I need to get to the end of this discussion. So there's some questions doing the rounds. First of all, I'm going to start with Mr. Shepherd, who's been very vocal on the side here. He wanted to know what we think, or does the panel believe the Lions centers can match the box? My short answer is no, I don't think so.
I think Diolende's playing incredibly well. I think a lot of us are eating a lot of humble pie over that man right now, myself included. The way he sat, was it Ringrose or Lama, wasn't it? The way he sat Lama down last week for the Munster Leinster. I'm like, okay. But he's added that dimension of being able to assist when he makes a break. He used to be very one-dimensional, but he's clearly a South African coach down there again, isn't it? It's a Van Graan down there who's doing working his magic. But Henshaw and then Lukhanyo Am, I suppose, at 13. So that'll be an interesting one. Be an interesting one if the game's open.
Definitely. Hein, what do you think?
Yeah, just the final one from me, Andy, is just what do you see as the biggest area of threat? And threat from the box, concern from the Lions perspective. Seeing the squad, where do you see this? What is your one concern?
I think getting the balance right in the front five is imperative for the Lions. We've seen what destruction an SA scrum can do. Itoje and Wyn Jones, if it's those two, or Itoje and Henderson, or Henderson or Wyn Jones, don't exclude anyone, need to, our line out and our front five has to be rock solid. It has to be watertight, because we know, everyone knows what your front five can do. Then you get into the back row, but I think it's probably the old cliche, isn't it? The forwards win the game, the backs decide by how much. And I think that was the World Cup final in 2019. You know, the forwards eventually just sort of outmuscled us, and then all of a sudden you just open the game up, and those two tries happen. So for me, that would be an area of worry, in the fact that they've got to get the front five right, because if you start conceding penalties at scrum time, we might as well all go home. I think the back row will be really, really interesting to see who he picks. And if I'm assuming Vermeulen's going to be at 8, he's going to be in the mix. And then I'm not convinced Khaleesi's going to make that side, but we'll see who he picks on the flank. Obviously, Pieter-Steph du Toit's back in the mix. That added bit of pace from the Lions might just create some second thoughts and doubts in who the box pick. Well, that'll be interesting to see how that play. But for me, the front five, you've got to lay a platform, go back to basics, make sure that's right. So I think there'll be a lot of pressure on those boys. But and also, you know, there's 37 out there, and across it, there's not many that you wouldn't chuck into a test side tomorrow. I'm just looking at the list now, but mark my words, Tyg Burn might be your ultimate bolter on this tour.
Listen, Andy, I gotta tell you that I'm probably differing from Cappy a little bit. That I'm seriously concerned. Not from a rugby perspective, it's going to be great fun, but from just the place that the box I had, I felt that they were absolutely at their peak for the World Cup, and I just don't see that you can be that given this build-up. And it's not excuses by any means. I just think, to me, this is the Lions, and they're going to be well up for this. So I think anyone, you know, from our perspective, who thinks this is going to be a 3-0 walk in the park or anywhere close to this, is going to be in for a serious surprise. So. Good luck to you, boys, and thanks for joining us. I'm going to leave you in Cappy's hands to maybe finish off with one of a memory or something you have on the Lions, but I'm going to duck out now to go and make some money on the betting show. Cheers, boys.
Take care, man. Thanks for having me on.
So, and on that note, let's share. I think let's share a moment there of yours. I mean, you've been I spoke to you before on loving the game, and I mean we spoke about it quite intensively and stuff. But one of your favorite moments from a Lions tour, because I mean you've obviously seen quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's been so many amazing tries as well over the years, like the Drico try in 2001 in the first test. That first test game, we were untouchable. Like I said, the 2009 tour to South Africa will probably go down as one of the greatest by the result to a degree. I mean, even the third test is, from a Lions perspective, is still spoken about as a great success, and there's reasons behind that, with it being Geech's last ever game and stuff like that. So 2013 was all right. It was decent. We won, and that was huge for us. But for me, 1997 will always be the one. We don't talk about 2005 and Clive Woodward. That was just ridiculous. But 1997 will go down. I actually think, going back to your question earlier, that's probably where the mystique about the traveling to South Africa came, because we didn't really know what we were in for. Although we knew we were playing the world champions, but we didn't know anything about those provincial games. Hey, and you watch the tour for DVD, and it's kind of like Jim Telfer just losing his shit, telling Afrikaners to speak English and shouting at them, and then you've got things like that. And I think probably that DVD broke new ground with everything. But for me, there's stuff we spoke about it on your thing, so it's out there. But my father was very ill during that Lions tour, and I didn't know. And we went and watched the first test, and Dawson's try at Newlands was just incredible. And then the second test, when Jeremy Guscott dropped that goal over, was just next level. And then, unfortunately, my father, during all of this, and he didn't tell us, had a brain tumor. So the last game of rugby I ever watched with my father was the second test in 1997. So that's why that shirt's there. And that shirt, right? I bought that in about 2008, 2009. It cost me like £80. Right? It's not even brand new. It's been worn. And one day I'll bump into Martin Johnson or McGeekin, and they can sign it for me, and I'll get it framed. But I had to buy one. It was one of them. Like, you can't get them now. You can't find the 97 shirt, especially not one with, because they made an edition afterwards that said "Victory in South Africa," and nobody wants that one. They want the original, It's a long sleeve as well. But there were so many incidents on that tour that were just amazing, like John Bentley's try against the Golden Lions. I think they were probably Golden Lions at the time. Yeah, and things like that. But yeah, that's I think that probably cemented the Lions to me. Was 97, and the second test, like I said, was the last game of rugby I ever watched with my dad before he passed away. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Shane, that's just not a nice story, but it is still something to cherish, obviously.
There's something to hold on to, 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
With
I mean,
Lions,
it is very nice. But I don't know how much of the 74 tour you've ever seen or watched.
Lots, yeah.
But with the shows that I work on at SuperSport, I've been watching quite a bit of that, and I must tell you, yes, those were the days. I tell you, compared to what rugby is today, the youngsters of today have got no clue what rugby really was about back in the day. And as much as I hear what you say about the 97 tour, I think that 74 tour probably had even a bigger impact on why this tour is so big for both South Africa and the Lions.
That tour broke all sorts of barriers down. Because what you find is that the boys from the UK and Ireland came over with a very different attitude to a South African at that time. So they didn't care where they went. They were there for everybody. It wasn't a political game. It was a we're here to play rugby. It was just like that lad wants a rugby ball. All right, let's chuck him a rugby ball. And there's some really good stories out there. One of the stories is that they came to Noorder, excuse my pronunciation, Noorder Baal's school here. Mike Burton came and a few others, and one Mr. Peter de Villiers was sat in the assembly hall and was inspired by what Mike Burton and those boys said to them that day, that he wanted to become a class coach. And obviously, his journey went full circle in 2009. And but it was all off the back of the Lions, and that's probably one of a million stories. You see, and that's what's so upsetting to a degree of the restrictions that's going to be on this tour, is what South Africa as a country would get out of it. And I think, again, it's just another layer of why South Africa is the ultimate place for the Lions to come, because the impact that it can have used in the right way is immeasurable compared to Australia and New Zealand. Yeah,
well, I mean, this year is going to be very different. I listened to Jason Leonard as well today, and he says that it doesn't matter, it's gonna be a great tour in different circumstances than normal, but at the end of the day, I think the spice will still be there. We spoke about it the other night as well, and I think it's going to be very even playing fields with no crowds being more than likely the situation. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to benefit out of no crowds, if that is the case. But let's see. Let's be positive. Maybe the government surprises us with something. But it's strongly, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a tour without fans, it's just not 100% the same thing. Thankfully, we'll be able to watch it still on television. And just for now, as I mentioned earlier, it's not confirmed yet. These were the original tour dates. So, if anything, hopefully something in that line still stays the same. At least if we can get the Stormers and the Sharks and the Bulls to play, that would be very, very nice, because, there's some history there as well, between some of those teams, the Bulls being the only team, the South African team that's beaten the Lions as well. And that was in 97. Hence also part of the jerseys that they are playing in at the moment is kind of like to commemorate that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so it will be nice if at least those 3 games can, be along with the test matches. And we need to see the Lions more than just 3 times. And I mean, I must say, we spoke about it in the beginning of the show. Am I excited about the tour? I think I'm even more excited after tonight's chat. I'm actually really, really looking forward to this. Whether we can be at the stadium or not, I don't mind. It's just going to be so nice to see the Springboks play. For you, obviously, seeing the Lions play again. I mean, it only happens every 4 years. So, everybody's excited just to see what's going to happen. So, may the best team win, as they would say. And who knows, maybe we'll have you on again closer to the time, or maybe even during the tour. We can catch up again and see how you feel about what's happening, how the team selections are going. Let's do that. I think
100%.
That would be really awesome to have you back. And thanks for everybody that tuned in tonight and watched along. I think a lot of people are starting to touch out now. So, closing. Thanks, Ans. Thanks for coming along, man. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks for talking English.
It's only a pleasure, man. So breaking down the barriers, as you mentioned a few times tonight. So. But anyway, thanks, Ans, and
thanks for having us on, mate.